Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Saturday. It is September the 6th. We're going to start off at the top of the board. We're going to talk about new general manager of the New York Islanders, Matthew Darch. And I know Islander fans have been impressed with him so far. And in an interview, he basically says that the trade of Noah Dobson is not a sign of any kind of rebuild, that he's already talked to the players and said he's not tearing things down. There's not going to be a rebuild. He even believes that the New York Islanders, as long as they can stay healthier than what they were this past season, that they have a good chance of making the playoffs. So he's saying all the right things. And then when talking about Dobson, he says there's no hard feelings, that the negotiations between himself and Dobson and his agent did not get to the point of acrimony, and there's no really hard feelings between the player and the team. It was just a matter of, if you think you can get that, if a team's willing to pay you for that, then I'll trade you there. And so the Habs were willing to pay the money Dobson wanted. Darch is fine with this. He's happy with the return and feels like they did pretty well. Says the draft picks that they got this year were players they didn't think would be available at the spots where they picked. So they're pretty happy. And the fact there's no hard feelings between himself and the player, I think is great. If that's accurate, and I'm saying if because we're getting one side of the story here, right? And I don't see any reason to think that he's lying necessarily, but sometimes one side thinks the breakup was fine, it was mutual, and the other side's like, I don't think they remember the breakup correctly. But either way, the Habs get their player. The Islanders save that money. They drafted Schaefer, obviously, first overall, and had a pretty good haul at the draft table in June. So do you think the Islanders can make the playoffs if they stay healthy? I think that could definitely help. At the very least, the New York Islanders this past season had really obvious flaws in their game, and so there are definitely some ways to fix that, rather than some teams that get close and there's little things here and there. But with the Islanders, they got burned. I believe it was their special teams that burned them the worst. But either way, injuries are definitely going to play a role there. And I mentioned in the season preview, Barzal's got to stay healthy. That's the number one. Let me know your thoughts on the Islanders. So a lot of people talking about the Sharks and saying they didn't get enough from Montreal in exchange for taking on that contract to Carey Price. It is definitely a topic of discussion. Maybe they could have forced it to a third round draft pick. But either way, they take on Price's contract, and because of insurance being on this contract, it means that of the $2 million salary that he's owed, they're only going to pay $800,000 of it. So Chris Johnston reporting that it's only going to be $800,000 that the Sharks are going to actually pay in real money for a contract which has a $10.5 million cap hit. So it works out pretty well for the Sharks. Honestly, he's not going to play. The money's just going to go on LTIR. Remember, with LTIR, as long as the player's not going to play all season, they can't play during the season or the playoffs, that whole contract comes off. That whole LTIR works the same as before. So I mentioned previously that means that Pietrangelo will go on LTIR. He won't be playing a game this year for Vegas, and that frees them up that money. But the Sharks take on that money. And as for why they would do this and not demand more, the way I always see it is GMs kind of want to help each other out just in case later on they need help with their salary cap situation. So you do that for them now, and then 3-4 years down the road, if Mike Grier has a salary cap issue, he can call Kent Hughes, providing they're both still general managers of the respective teams, and say, hey, remember I took on Price's contract? I got this one here. Could we work something out? And then I think that's the kind of relationship they're looking to have. So, let me know your thoughts on that. Yeah, it probably could have been a higher draft pick, but either way. Elliot Friedman's reporting that Mason McTavish's negotiations with the Ducks are kind of stalled at this point, which matches the reporting out there from others as well. It definitely looks like this could go on for a while. Remembering the training camp is about a week and a half off, almost 2 weeks off. So with McTavish, it is a matter of it's a player that's coming off of a career best. He's going to better those numbers again. McTavish is going to be an excellent top six forward for a long time in the NHL, and the Ducks apparently want him signed to a long-term deal, so they would prefer not to do a bridge contract, and Pat Verbeek has been willing to wait on contracts before with young players, so we appear to be in that situation again. Getting McTavish signed is important for both the player and the team, I believe, but we'll see what ends up happening there, or what the cap hit ends up looking like, and will it be a bridge deal? Could it be a 3-year deal, or are they going to talk him into maybe five years or more? That's where things get kind of interesting. Speaking of contracts, pending unrestricted free agent Matthias Ekholm of the Edmonton Oilers. He wants to sign an extension. He wants to stay in Edmonton. But he also understands that there's a pecking order and that Connor McDavid is ahead of him in that pecking order. So for the Oilers, they have to sign McDavid first, I would think, before you sign Ekholm. Unless it becomes obvious that McDavid isn't going to stick around. But I haven't seen anything to state that that's not going to be the case. I did find something funny today that I think it's on TSN, they've got 2 articles side by side. One that says the feeling was the Oilers took a step back, that internally within the Oilers, the team took a step back from 2024 to 2025 when it comes to the final. And then right next to it is an article with McDavid saying he thinks the Oilers are the best they've ever been. So, difference of opinion here, but Matthias Ekholm being in the lineup and being healthy makes a big difference for the Oilers, and getting him signed to an extension would be a good move for Stan Bowman. We'll see what that ends up looking like should that take place. Pierre LeBrun reporting that the trade deadline has been set at March the 6th. This is not long after the end of the Olympic break. It's only 10 days after the end of the Olympic break, and it's only 6 months from today. So it's not that long until the trade deadline. But yeah, the fact the Olympic break's only 10 days beforehand, I haven't seen that they're going to have like a trade freeze during the Olympics. They could. I haven't seen that there's going to be one. That doesn't mean there won't be one. There very well could be, where basically players aren't allowed to be traded during that 3-week period. So it could lead to a very, very busy 10 days. I know there's some discussion about how with the double retention trades being gone, the trades might be more difficult to make. And of course, the whole cap hit's going to be on the team no matter when they get traded. I think GMs are just going to have to figure it out. They figured it out before, so I think they can figure it out again. I do think there'll be trades. I think they're just gonna have to get their capologists. They're people that this is their job, is to figure out how to make this work with the cap. They're definitely going to be going through a crash course this year on how to make trades work. But I think we're still going to see trades. We don't see trades anywhere near like we used to back in the day, especially during the season. It's basically just you have the trade deadline and then whatever happens during the summer, and then outside of that, there's not a whole lot of movement. But the Olympic break ending just 10 days before the trade deadline should make for things to be interesting at trade deadline. The news today, of course, that Ken Dryden has passed. Sad news. Passes at age 78 after a battle with cancer. Ken Dryden, I did the career video on him, and honestly, you could do a career video on his playing time and then a whole video on everything he did after. And he's one of those rarities who stepped away from the game when he was still at the top of it. He could have played for another probably 10 years in the NHL if he wanted to, and instead decided to step away. And I always respected that, even though he stepped away before I started following hockey. I've always respected that he did that. And it always seemed weird to me that he did that. When I started getting into hockey and I learned about Ken Dryden, I thought, why? And I was like, is it an injury? No, it wasn't an injury. He walked away. It's so weird. But Dryden always seemed like a stand-up guy to me, so my condolences to friends and family of Ken Dryden. But it is one of those things that as I get older, more and more cases where people that I grew up watching pass. It's sad. In this case, of course, somebody who played before I was watching him, but it's a very similar feeling. So, at any rate, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event that you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.